In the morning, the sunlight crept through the window, casting its glow into the room. It awakened the young man, who sat up with a tired body and a pounding headache. He wondered, what happened? Trying to recall, he vaguely remembered having a drink last night and encountering Kim on Thursday. However, something felt off. How could it be? He turned pale, looking at the person lying next to him in shock. Could it be that Kim on Thursday did something improper to him? Terrified at the thought, he hastily put on his clothes, grabbed his coat and tie, and rushed out of bed, flinging open the door. In his haste, his belongings scattered on the floor, and his mind was filled with questions about what had happened the previous night. He began piecing together the events. He remembered selling an old inventory bag and going to a bar for a drink. Suddenly, he paused for a few seconds, recalling that while sitting alone at the bar, the bartender handed him a glass of wine, saying that the gentleman on the other side invited him for a drink. He knew it was a stranger's way of starting a conversation, but he accepted the grape in the glass, glancing to see how the person looked. Instead of an attractive girl, it was a well-dressed guy sitting alone on the opposite sofa. He was surprised by the unexpected gender of his drink companion, causing him to choke on the grape continuously. The bartender shouted for help, and he was saved. The guy offering water came over, hugged him tightly from behind, applying the Heimlich maneuver to dislodge the grape from his throat. Tears fell involuntarily. It was their first tight embrace. Finally, with both of their efforts, the grape was expelled. He exclaimed, realizing that this romantic encounter was breathtaking. The guy in the vest turned to express reproach, asking how he could choke on the grape. Rubbing his throat, he replied, "Your wine, Mr. Kim, is too strong." At this moment, he was utterly shocked, thinking how Kim on Thursday could be so approachable. However, when he looked at Kim President's demeanor, he dismissed that thought. I must be hallucinating. How can Kim on Thursday be approachable? He even compared to emphasize that Kim on Thursday was not easygoing, recalling that even as a poor student, Kim on Thursday had a difficult temperament. Now as the CEO, he must have become even more arrogant. The two of them sat very close, their eyes locked in a gaze like lovers. Eventually, what had to happen happened. They shared a passionate kiss and a night together. At Bao Fan Lu's store, the unfortunate worker, after sobering up, had to go back to work. He sat, nursing his headache, contemplating the situation. He doubted himself, wondering if he had taken the initiative. Regardless, Kim on Thursday, who used to look down on him, now seemed to want him. Was trapping him like this not a sign of a confused mind? He was melancholic, deeply regretful, but then he forgot everything. Involuntarily, he snapped out of his thoughts and realized, I must be losing my mind. What am I thinking? He couldn't control himself from feeling dejected and thought, but maybe we won't have a future together anyway. A colleague's words interrupted his train of thought. That's right. Today we want to announce some news. Bao Fan Lu is about to be acquired by the Long Corporation. Upon hearing this, everyone couldn't help but be surprised because if it were true, the CEO of the company would become a famous yet meaningless figure in the industry. Continuing, Kim on Thursday, an employee from earlier, said, Mr. Kim clearly expressed that he felt the store was expanding too much. He mentioned that since he took over as CEO, he conducts performance evaluations every quarter. Not to mention other aspects, he simply looks at the bottom-ranked outlets in terms of sales and terminates them. People were both shocked and outraged upon hearing this news. To think that the bottom-ranked outlets would be terminated, he too felt indignant and furious. What is Kim on Thursday thinking? In the office, the discussion was underway about the topic of acquiring Bao Fan Lu. The person on the other end of the line spoke to CEO Kim, informing him that discussions had been completed at the headquarters. All that was needed was for him to accept Bao Fan Lu, and the CEO of the Long Corporation for the Asia-Pacific region, none other than him, Kim on Thursday, responded. He casually dismissed any concerns, saying, No need to worry. If I step back, naturally I'll be promoted. They just want me to lead Bao Fan Lu, so there's no need to complicate things. The person on the other end of the phone with Kim was his superior, Thursday MacCock. He sighed in response, expressing frustration with Kim Lon Thursday's nonchalant attitude, stating that every time he opens his mouth, it seems like the person he diligently trained has become a madman. The conversation continued, and Kim Lon Thursday was told that Long Corporation was planning to acquire Bao Fan Lu. Hearing this news, everyone was surprised, as it meant that the CEO of the company would become a notorious figure in the industry. Kim Lon Thursday continued with his explanation, mentioning that Kim had expressed concerns about the store expanding too much. Kim, since becoming the CEO, evaluated performance quarterly, focusing on sales and eliminating poorly performing outlets. During this revelation, people were shocked and outraged. Kim Lon Thursday felt a mixture of indignation and anger, wondering about Kim's intentions. The secretary pointed out a crucial point, asking about the significance of the 5 million mentioned in the report. Kim Lon Thursday, confused, pointed to that part and asked the secretary. She explained that it was for designer Tony to go on a trip to find inspiration. Kim expressed his frustration, slamming his hand on the table, questioning why Tony, whose designs weren't selling well, was considered a top designer. The secretary supported Kim's opinion, agreeing that the pink cylindrical bag designed by Tony was not appealing. Kim sarcastically remarked that they should reward the salesperson who managed to sell it. Tong Fong Doi sneezed as he was mentioned, catching the attention of those in the room. Kim Lon Thursday stood up, suggesting they witness the history of Bao Fan Lu. In the meeting, a loud bang on the table was followed by impassioned words. Someone voiced their displeasure, questioning why they wanted to shift the company's development towards digitization and rejuvenation, deviating from their 100-year-old path. Kim Lon Thursday, unwavering in his beliefs, calmly responded, "Who are you to question us? We are the ones doing the work while you worry about the 100-year-old family traditions." Kim Lon Thursday's recent purchase news had put Bao Fan Lu at the center of public attention. While it brought some attention to the stagnant company, Kim Lon Thursday sarcastically remarked that it was unfortunate. The person continued, making a statement that made everyone in the meeting reconsider, emphasizing the need to ignite a fire at this moment, or else waiting for death was the only option. A month later, Bao Fan Lu's store was bustling with people. Tong Fong Doi looked at the products, thinking that the overall lineup had indeed changed with trustworthy designers. He admired the fact that Kim Lon Thursday was still as formidable as before, but then pondered, that night, did I really occupy his convenience? He also got drunk, and when he sobered up, he couldn't remember if he regretted it or not. Why did he get involved in this situation? A woman's voice interrupted his thoughts. She hesitated and asked, "That thing?" Tong Fong Doi quickly changed his expression to a friendly one and said, "Hello, how can I help you?" He returned to the cheerful state of advising customers, realizing that this might just be another misunderstanding. He had better continue living his life. After work, he had a prior arrangement. Carrying both a large and a small bag, he headed to the bar. Looking around, he spotted Kim Lon Thursday sitting alone on the sofa. His friends, aware of the arrangement, saw Tong Fong Doi and called out, "Hey, over here!" Tong Fong Doi approached the table, laughing and saying, "Sorry for the wait." Before Tong Fong Doi could respond to the teasing question about graduating from a renowned academy and working as a shopping guide, a quick response came from the lady. She clarified that Tong Fong Doi was the store manager. Another friend pointed to Tong Fong Doi's bags, retorting that they didn't look the same. The lady thought he liked her, and the friend with glasses didn't let Tong Fong Doi off easily. However, Tong Fong Doi skillfully changed his demeanor, raising his glass elegantly and speaking in a more feminine tone, saying, "No, I'm genuinely happy that you, my sisters, have helped me. We're truly good sisters." This unexpected response left the two young men speechless, unable to say a word. The two young men sitting across looked at Tong Fong Doi suspiciously and asked, "Are you two sisters?" He raised his hand to touch his hair and nodded in agreement. The girl next to him held the bag Tong Fong Doi brought and exclaimed, "This bag is beautiful." She added, Teasingly, finally, Bao Fanlu has decided to invite a blind person to be a designer, right? Tong Fongdoi smiled, not wanting to offend the girl, and activated his salesperson mode. He tried to persuade her to buy the bag, emphasizing its beauty and how well it suited her. The guy sitting across took the opportunity to join in, saying, "But I feel it's a bit plain." This comment made the girl a bit uneasy because, like any girl, she wanted to appear perfect and glamorous. She wondered why, and the guy suddenly pulled out a necklace, suggesting, "I saw this at Tiffany. It's not bad. How about trying it with this bag?" The girl hesitated, and the guy with glasses chimed in, criticizing Tiffany as not worthy for such an elegant lady. He suggested Bulgari instead. The two guys started arguing, but Tong Fongdoi paid no attention. He calmly sipped his water, thinking about the jealousy of men. The argument between the two guys finally stopped when the girl became interested in someone else. They looked in that direction and asked if it looked like Kim Lon Thursday. Hearing Kim Lon Thursday's name, Tong Fongdoi felt horrified and turned pale. The guy wearing glasses couldn't resist asking, "Is it Kim Lon Thursday? Sister, would you be interested in him?" Tong Fongdoi, now tense, just wanted to transform into a muscular hero to teach that guy a lesson. The unexpected revelation made the two young men stop arguing. The girl stood up, intrigued by Kim Lon Thursday, and approached him. When she reached him, she called and pulled the man towards them. People at Tong Fongdoi's table commented, "He's wearing glasses. Could it be Kim Lon Thursday?" Tong Fongdoi was terrified to the point of choking on his water. The guy with glasses couldn't believe it, stating that Kim Seo didn't look like someone who was into men. He added that he didn't resemble Tong Fongdoi either. At this moment, Tong Fongdoi just wished to transform into a powerful figure to make him taste the punch of justice. To the surprise of all three, the girl managed to pull Kim Lon Thursday in front of everyone. The guy in the green shirt, a bit tense, tried to flatter him by admiring the jewelry on Kim's suit, attempting to draw attention and praising him. Kim Lon Thursday stood there, unable to control himself, glancing at Tong Fongdoi. Tong Fongdoi, feeling extremely uncomfortable, continued drinking water to hide his embarrassment. Kim Seo, sitting on the other side, continued to stare at him. Feeling unnatural seeing Kim Lon Thursday, Tong Fongdoi found an excuse to leave early. However, seeing Tong Fongdoi wanting to leave, Kim Lon Thursday had no reason to stay and suggested, "Let's go, little Tong." He called him that way. Tong Fongdoi began to panic. Kim Lon Thursday continued, "It's getting late. I should take you home." Little Tong couldn't find a way to refuse, so he reluctantly agreed. When they left the bar, Kim Seo's car was waiting. He appeared gentlemanly, opening the car door for Tong Fongdoi. Little Tong, being cautious, asked where they were going. Kim Seo casually responded, "I'll take you home." Hearing this, Little Tong felt uneasy and took a step back, expressing that his home was very close, and he didn't need Kim Seo to take him. Kim Lon Thursday, leaning close, chuckled softly. "Seems like you resist me a lot, Little Tong." Little Tong, trying to ease his nervousness, raised his hand and gestured to stop him. Tong Fongdoi waved his hand dismissively, still smiling, and said a seemingly indifferent sentence. "It's just that we're not that close." Those words hit Kim Lon Thursday like a lightning bolt, making him grit his teeth and repeat each word, his face darkening with anger. Kim Lon Thursday was so furious that his veins bulged. Not that close, yet able to do that? His anger left Tong Fongdoi perplexed, and he replied, "Sorry, but..." Kim Seo's heart felt like it was stabbed with 1,000 knives. He abruptly turned away and got into the car. Before leaving, he told Tong Fongdoi, "Don't speak as if I will cling to you and not let go." Then he angrily slammed the car door shut and drove away. Tong Fongdoi stood there, stunned. watching the car gradually disappear into the distance. Upon returning home, Tong Fongdoi first took a shower. While bathing, he wondered why Kim Lon Thursday appeared there and why he suggested taking him home. The more he thought, the more he blushed uncontrollably. Could it be that he wanted to approach him? Then he suddenly regained clarity and began to self-blame. What had caused him to feel guilty like this? After the shower, he only wrapped a towel around his waist and went out. He warned himself not to think anymore, not to wander in irrelevant thoughts. The next morning, he was awakened by a text message on his phone. Tong Fongdoi opened his eyes, checked the message, and found that it was from his older sister last night. The main idea was to ask little Tong Fongdoi for Kim's CEO's contact information. Since it was just an assistant yesterday, she only wanted to establish some business relations. Because she noticed that the two of them were quite close, she asked for his help a bit. Feeling helpless, Tong Fongdoi lay on the bed and replied to the message. He thought, he's the CEO. If I'm so close to him, I wouldn't need to worry about performance in the store every day. In the early morning of the next day, a difficult guest appeared at the store where Tong Fongdoi worked. A woman walked over and sat on the sofa, exuding an air of difficulty. She asked the female staff if they had drinks in the store. The female staff cheerfully explained that this was a fashion store, and if she wanted a drink, she could go to the store opposite. The answer seemed to anger the woman, and she spoke in a sharp tone. I want to drink something here and then look at the product list slowly. Is that not allowed? The staff member glanced at the woman's cheap t-shirt and hesitated to check the membership list. The angry woman immediately threw the product list on the table, scolding, I'm not a member, so I don't deserve service, right? The situation was challenging for the staff, fearing that it would affect the store's business. Fortunately, Tong Fongdoi appeared in time. He signaled the female staff to leave so that he could handle this matter. He politely asked, What drink would you like? The angry woman calmed down a bit and, after reviewing the product list, said she wanted to drink Hong Kong-style milk tea. Tong Fongdoi thought to himself that there couldn't possibly be Hong Kong-style milk tea in a luxury store. But he couldn't say no to the customer's request. He reluctantly bowed his head and said, Please wait a moment. He went to the kitchen, opened a cabinet, and luckily found 2 cans of Hong Kong-style milk tea that he had put away earlier. He sighed in relief, thinking it was fortunate that he had prepared a bit when he wanted to drink it himself. Then he poured the tea into a cup and brought it to the difficult customer for her enjoyment. After being served according to her preference, the woman began asking about the products, inquiring about the most challenging items of the season. Tong Fongdoi chuckled gently and replied, Of course, those that are not displayed. She looked at Tong Fongdoi, gave a faint smile, and then the two talked for a long time before the woman finally left. The female staff member who was previously treated poorly by that woman expressed her discomfort and spoke ill of her, saying, That annoying person. If she doesn't want to buy anything, that's fine. But she keeps asking this and that, making so many requests. Her colleague behind her began to suspect if that mysterious woman might be someone special. The female employee responded, Impossible. Mysterious customers from the main office who come to supervise are just regular people. At most, they observe more and ask more questions. They wouldn't intentionally send troublemakers here. After interacting with that woman, Tong Fongdoi remarked that she was indeed very strange, almost as if deliberately provoking others. He reminded everyone that even though they were running a store, they still needed to be attentive to avoid affecting the company's image. His co-workers agreed with his opinion. In the following days, the store suddenly became very crowded. People rushed inside, heading straight to Tong Fongdoi, clamoring for his assistance in shopping. They wanted him to choose bags for them. The crowd jostled and pushed each other just to be served by Tong Fongdoi. He, on the other hand, was completely puzzled by what was happening to him. The store was busier than usual today, and all the staff, including Tong Fongdoi, became more occupied. He carried a pile of items in his hands to serve customers, not understanding what was happening. Why were there so many people today? Finally, lunch break arrived, and he felt exhausted, slumping onto the table. A colleague brought a phone to Tong Fong Doi and said, "You're famous now." In front of him was an article with the title, "Survey. Can you enjoy ginseng tea at luxury stores without buying anything?" Everyone pulled out their phones to search. The female coworker mentioned that this article had been widely shared among friends yesterday. Tong Fong Doi read the article and checked the comments left by netizens. He felt embarrassed as everyone around praised him, calling him strong and capable. At this moment, Tong Fong Doi's phone received a message. Opening it, he saw that it was from the area manager, congratulating him for ranking first this month. The message hinted at a big bonus if he achieved the top position for the quarter. Tong Fong Doi's mouth watered at the prospect of a substantial reward. However, when the second message mentioned that the CEO would personally present the award, his expression darkened. He wondered if it was because of Kim Lon Thursday. Should he accept it or not? After a brief internal struggle, he decided to discard that thought and, as if indifferent, shook his head, thinking, having money and not wanting it would be crazy. That night on his way home from work, Tong Fong Doi was full of thoughts, unconsciously walking to Tiffany jewelry store at any time. He couldn't help but think about the lightning-shaped cufflink on Kim Lon Thursday's shirt, hesitating outside the store but eventually stepping inside. Tong Fong Doi was warmly welcomed by the staff. He expressed his request for the square-shaped lightning cufflink to the staff. After confirming that he had no other needs, the staff brought out a sample of the jewelry as requested. She said, "This is the lightning cufflink made of pure silver from the Tiffany 1837 collection." When Tong Fong Doi looked at the cufflink she presented, his eyes lit up, and he involuntarily smiled. This is the one, he thought. However, when he looked at the price tag indicating 3,000 yuan, he was shocked. He didn't expect pure silver to be sold at such a high price, feeling quite dissatisfied. He suddenly hesitated and thought, with 3,000 yuan, I could buy a pair of items with the CEO which would be more worthwhile. After that, he immediately told the salesperson that he would take it. The staff carefully wrapped the cufflink and handed it to Tong Fong along with the invoice, saying, "Please go to the back for payment." Following the instructions, he went to the back to pay but accidentally bumped into another man. Tong Fong Doi, in pain, rubbed his nose and looked up to see Kim Lon Thursday. He was embarrassed and quickly hid the bag behind his back. Kim Lon Thursday noticed Tong Fong Doi's awkwardness and asked, "What's with this sneaky look?" Although Lon Thursday appeared very cold on the surface, internally he was struggling. "Last time we met, you claimed we weren't acquainted. Now you're using my name," he said. Tong Fong Doi, fearing exposure, forced a smile to brush off the tension. He replied, "It's nothing, just a bit surprised to see you." Luckily, a staff member intervened, rescuing Tong Fong Doi from Kim Lon Thursday's interrogation. Kim Lon Thursday, in a commanding manner, told the staff, "Whatever he buys, I want to see it." Tong Fong Doi, feeling stiff and sweating, turned pale as the staff reported back to Kim Lon Thursday. The response made Kim Lon Thursday laugh and teasingly asked Tong Fong Doi if he wanted to imitate him. The staff had a feeling that someone was superfluous and thought she should stay under the car instead of being here. Kim Lon Thursday pressed his face close to his, the distance between them getting shorter. He kept questioning why Tong Fong Doi was imitating him. Kim Lon Thursday repeated this question several times, making Tong Fong Doi feel dizzy. "All right, I gave up to this guy," Tong Fong Doi thought. Despite being extremely tense, he managed to smile gently, saying he merely wanted to check out that particular item, not intentionally stealing Kim Lon Thursday's style. Afterward, Tong Fong Doi quickly handed the product bag to the saleswoman, suggesting that he might return it. Seeing this, Kim Lon Thursday told him he didn't need to return and turned away. Suddenly, he stopped, causing Tong Fong Doi, who was walking behind him, to bump into his back. Kim Lon Thursday self-conceitedly remarked that even if he copied him, he wouldn't be the same. Tong Fong Doi truly felt heartache. After a while, thank goodness, he finally left. Tong Fong Doi felt much relieved and followed him quickly. They walked side by side, and Tong Fong Doi secretly glanced at his side profile. He had to admit this guy was really handsome. Looking at this sharp face made Tong Fong Doi's heart beat faster. It seemed Kim Lon Thursday sensed someone looking at him. He turned to Tong Fong Doi and asked why. Startled, Tong Fong Doi hesitated and answered vaguely. Kim Lon Thursday coldly smiled and turned away. Tong Fong Doi thought he didn't know what he was thinking. Unable to understand, he asked Kim Lon Thursday what he thought. Without turning back, Kim Lon Thursday said that he must have felt it was not a coincidence. They had met at the bar twice and now here. Remembering the bar scene, Kim Lon Thursday wondered if Tong Fong Doi thought he couldn't let go, implying he was entangled with him. Hearing this, Tong Fong Doi denied, saying he didn't think so. Surprisingly, Kim Lon Thursday got angry, urging him to be honest. Did you think you were very attractive? Tong Fong Doi looked bewildered, not knowing that Kim Lon Thursday couldn't forget him. The more he spoke, the more confused Tong Fong Doi became. Scratching his head, he asked what had happened that night. Kim Lon Thursday was furious and shouted loudly, asking Tong Fong Doi what he meant. Faced with his anger, Tong Fong Doi turned his face, pretending to be clueless, and then answered that he was actually too drunk to remember anything. Kim Lon Thursday clenched his hand so tightly that the green veins were visible, accusing Tong Fong Doi of deliberately saying such words to make him angry. Tong Fong Doi felt confused, but Kim Lon Thursday didn't want to hear more, so he turned away and said that not taking responsibility like that truly angered people. Tong Fong Doi softly apologized, but received no response from him. After a while, he suddenly asked about the green enamel button on Tong Fong Doi's white shirt. Tong Fong Doi was startled and admitted that it was his. No wonder he couldn't find it. It must have been dropped that night. Kim Lon Thursday, with an expression difficult to read, told him to come to his place to get it. Tong Fong Doi said it might not be a good idea to go, but before he finished refusing, Kim Lon Thursday had already grabbed his hand and pulled him away. Tong Fong Doi looked embarrassed as their hands intertwined. Later, Kim Lon Thursday led him to where he stayed. Looking at the room arrangement, Tong Fong Doi asked if he was in a hotel now. He answered yes and, turning around, slowly took off his shirt. Tong Fong Doi looked at him and asked why he brought him back that day. He was in the process of unbuttoning the second button and didn't turn back, stating it was because Tong Fong Doi was very drunk and he didn't know where he lived. He couldn't let him stay alone in a hotel. Kim Lon Thursday took off his tie and suit jacket, throwing them on the bed, then approached Tong Fong Doi. Tong Fong Doi, while saying it could be so, felt Kim Lon Thursday getting closer to his forehead. The breath of the two mixed together as he hadn't finished his sentence. One of his hands was already caressing Tong Fong Doi's smooth and white face. His other hand moved down to the waistband of Tong Fong Doi's trousers. Tong Fong Doi asked softly about the state of not wearing clothes, and Kim Lon Thursday whispered gently into his ear, making his ears turn red. He continued to ask if Tong Fong Doi definitely wanted to know, all while his hand slid down to the waistband. Tong Fong Doi blushed and nodded in agreement. Tong Fong Doi nodded awkwardly. Seeing that, Kim Lon Thursday immediately pushed him onto the bed and pinned him down. He said, "Now I'll show you." At this moment, he seemed to be dominated by desire, the previously cold and neat demeanor disappearing. The shirt was unbuttoned, and as he breathed heavily, he said that he would let Tong Fong Doi know. Then he leaned down and kissed his lips. The two entangled, the sound of heavy breathing becoming more pronounced, the bed in disarray, clothes scattered on the floor. Kim Lon Thursday flipped Tong Fong Doi over, his hand stroking his back. Tong Fong Doi blushed and asked why. By now, he had unbuttoned his shirt, all because Tong Fong Doi seduced him. Tong Fong Doi's eyes were hazy, and he still didn't understand. Seeing his confusion, Kim Lon Thursday asked if he wanted him to stop now. Tong Fong Doi didn't answer but reached out to hug his neck, pulling him closer. The next morning, Kim Lon Thursday picked up the lightning-shaped cufflink from the ground. Tong Fong Doi said there was another one, or was it the one he was wearing? He pointed to the bag on the bedside, and Kim Lon Thursday glanced at it. He compared the lightning cufflink in his hand with his old one, and they were exactly the same. This statement made Tong Fong Doi feel embarrassed, so he covered his face with a blanket. After that, Kim Lon Thursday put on the cufflink and said he would return it next time they meet. Tong Fong Doi, peeking out from under the blanket, asked when that would be. He replied by asking when Tong Fong Doi liked it, making him even more embarrassed. Tong Fong Doi said he was a busy person, a great CEO, so it would be up to him. Kim Lon Thursday lowered his head, looking at his phone, and said, "That's fine. I'll contact you when I'm free." Then he raised the phone screen and said, "We're friends now." Suddenly, Tong Fong Doi remembered that someone had asked him to contact Kim Lon Thursday before through Assistant O. Now looking at the phone screen in front of him, Tong Fong Doi immediately asked, "Isn't this your assistant?" Unexpectedly, he replied that this was his contact method. Tong Fong Doi got up from the bed, puzzled, and asked why he would give his assistant's contact to him. Tong Fong Doi wondered why he gave his assistant's contact to his school sister, referring to himself and Kim Lon Thursday. Kim Lon Thursday furrowed his brows and asked, "Who?" Seeing his expression, Tong Fong Doi couldn't help but burst into laughter. Then he asked if he needed more rest, startling him. Seeing him getting dressed and leaving, Tong Fong Doi was lost in his thoughts. Is he driving him away? Suddenly feeling unhappy, he said, "No, I'll leave now," and immediately left. But Kim Lon Thursday said it was okay, he could leave whenever he wanted. Tong Fong Doi jerked, then looked at him. At this moment, he was on the phone with someone named O Van. Tong Fong Doi wondered who O Van was and wanted to ask him to wait, but before he could finish his sentence, the person had disappeared. Tong Fong Doi sat alone in the room, frowning. He silently cursed him for being a playboy. At the company, Kim Lon Thursday and 3 others were struggling with an online scandal. A director's comment on using real animal skin for shoes would definitely stir up controversy. Kim Lon Thursday, after reading this news, rubbed his forehead, furious to the point of trembling. This guy is crazy. Nowadays, consumers are very concerned about environmental protection and animal welfare. His secretary reviewed the data and reported that there had been a huge storm online. Next month, they would issue a statement hoping to stop the malicious comments. Kim Lon Thursday frowned deeply. He impatiently tapped the pen on the table and demanded the social department's handling direction. The person from the social department said they must apologize, and Kim's CEO would decide how to deal with that director. The secretary standing beside shook her head, suggesting they could be stricter. So next month they'll issue the announcement. Kim Lon Thursday rubbed his chin, pondered for a moment, and then spoke up. "We just acquired and something like this happened. It can't be easily overlooked." The other 2 immediately looked at him and asked what he meant. Kim Lon Thursday slammed the pen on the table, saying, "Anyway, many designers have been fired, so one more won't hurt." Hearing that Kim Lon Thursday wanted to continue firing that director, everyone was surprised. The secretary asked why he wanted to fire a director near the release date. Kim Lon Thursday tightened his grip on his hand, stating that the company paid that guy $5 million a year, not for him to cause trouble. Immediately after, he instructed Fan Lu to release a new statement, emphasizing their commitment to an eco-friendly approach. On behalf of Director XXX, they apologized to consumers for the inappropriate remarks, and the company would terminate the cooperation with him. Additionally, the line of shoes designed by him would be discontinued. This apology somewhat cooled the public's anger. People started to view the company more positively and looked forward to new products. The next day, during Fan Lu's meeting, the secretary reported that public opinion had shifted in their favor. Kim Lon Thursday glanced through the documents and said that artists should not have social media accounts. Otherwise, they would talk nonsense. The PR director, standing beside him, looked at him with admiration, saying that what Mr. Kim said was indeed accurate. Kim Lon Thursday, sitting confidently, asserted that what he said was naturally correct. Looking at this shining figure in front of him, he thought that maybe the CEO wasn't suitable for public speaking. The deputy CEO stood up to speak, asking about the new products. Shouldn't they introduce leather shoes again? Immediately, the operations director vehemently opposed it. The deputy CEO also retorted, suggesting that the operations director was just afraid of losing his job. They argued fiercely, criticizing each other. Meanwhile, Kim Lon Thursday and his secretary watched them silently. The secretary observed his fingers tapping on the table. He guessed that everyone had proposed their ideas, but the hardest part was making a decision. After a while, Kim Lon Thursday clenched his fist and said, "Make sports shoes." As soon as he finished speaking, the whole meeting room became noisy, and no one understood what he meant. They asked why sports shoes which are worn during exercise. The deputy CEO wiped sweat from his forehead, saying, "Women should also make sports shoes." He couldn't imagine how a beautiful model in elegant clothes would look wearing sports shoes. Kim Lon Thursday told him he should improve his imagination, cultivate abstract thinking, or read more books to see the world more clearly. He heard that and immediately held his breath. The secretary typed on the phone screen, stating that producing sports shoes and even having female models wear them during a press conference with an elegant and sophisticated theme might be conservative and not suitable from the perspective of Bao Fan Lu, who was always resistant to change. However, Kim Lon Thursday had always said to do it. Seeing no more opinions, he decided to adjourn the meeting. On the other side, in Bao Fan Lu's store, Tong Fong Thoi's colleagues were gossiping. They talked about the new director firing people right away. Wasn't it normal to fire a lot of designers before? The store even fired the worst-performing employees through the system. Now that he's a director, is he going to fire them all? Tong Fong Thoi said to just work diligently, and no one would get fired. If they wanted to fire someone, they would have to pay them. He looked at them and told them to sneak a laugh. The group immediately tensed, panicked, and left. Tong Fong Thoi stopped taking notes, sighed, and thought that maybe Kim Lon Thursday hadn't contacted him recently because he was busy with recalling the leather shoes. He opened his contacts to find Kim Lon Thursday's number, and as he stared at it, he wondered if he was okay. Suddenly, the phone rang. Someone was calling him. The screen showed it was from Mi Sai, at Bao Fan Lu's company. A bunch of shoe design drafts had been thrown on the ground. Kim Lon Thursday sat in front of a group of designers working. One designer wanted Kim Lon Thursday to review his design, but before he could finish his sentence, Kim Lon Thursday told him to consider whether they should change designers. This designer, already balding, became even balder. He silently wiped his tears, claiming he hadn't said anything. Kim Lon Thursday threw away his design drafts, stood up, and walked away. The secretary observed his actions. He could understand that many designers thought of themselves as the soul of the company, but this was not practical here, because Kim Lon Thursday was the true soul of the business. For him, obedience was more important than talent. Although they all complained, they understood that a talented designer might not be able to lead a project, but he could lead a business. Kim Lon Thursday returned to his private villa at 11 p.m. after a tiring day of work. Standing in front of the house, he loosened his tie and examined his cufflink, lost in thought. Suddenly, he remembered the scene from the previous night when he gently stroked the lightning-shaped cufflink on Tong Fong Thoi's shirt. The elevator door opened, and a woman stepped out, greeting him as Mr. Kim. Surprised by someone approaching, Kim Lon Thursday frowned. He turned back to glance at the woman. He wondered why she wasn't wearing the hotel staff uniform. It was late at night and she appeared in the corridor like this. Mi Sai, seeing him staring at her, didn't understand. He passed her and made a suggestive remark, claiming he was gay, causing her to startle. Mi Sai stammered, saying she knew. Kim Lon Thursday, now realizing Mi Sai knew about it, was stern and questioned why she approached him with flirtatious intent. Suddenly, he recognized her and wondered how she knew. Mi Sai presented her introduction as a magazine reporter who had previously scheduled an interview at 8 o'clock. She had been waiting and called his assistant, but he was busy. Kim Lon Thursday scrutinized the paper, thinking the girl who came for the interview was the same one Van mentioned before. He had mistaken her for a hotel employee. He punched himself in the conscience, realizing his error. Then he asked why she waited from 8 o'clock until now. Misai nodded, and he observed her trembling legs, realizing she wasn't lying. He told her to come in, and she happily followed him like an excited puppy. Misai started recording the conversation as the interview began. She asked him about recently firing a director due to online comments, and he explained that the company had clarified this multiple times. However, this wasn't what she wanted to know. She had found out that, after he took office, some high-ranking designers were fired. Was it because he felt their beliefs didn't align with his? Kim Lon Thursday looked at her and replied that he had no beliefs to discuss. He wasn't an artist but a manager. Kim Lon Thursday continued, stating that if anything or anyone reduced the effectiveness of management, he would deal with it immediately. On this point, he wanted to treat everyone equally. Misai nodded, jotting down notes, and asked if he was also a person who desired strong control in his personal life. Kim Lon Thursday admitted to not denying this aspect of his life. Misai's eyes lit up, and she began asking about his romantic life. However, they were interrupted by a notification on Kim Lon Thursday's phone. It was a message from Tong Fong Doi reminding him that he forgot his blue enamel tie clip. Meanwhile, Tong Fong Doi lay in bed, contemplating. He had previously mentioned that he would contact him when he had free time, but now he wondered if he had become too impatient. Unsure if he had been too impatient, he hesitated. Misai observed the man in front of her, surrounded by the rosy bubble of love. She wondered if he thought she was blind. Suddenly, Kim Lon Thursday stood up and said it was not early anymore. If she had no more questions, she could leave. Misai, feeling she had waited for hours for only a few minutes of interview time, was about to express her dissatisfaction when he interrupted, suggesting that she felt he was wasting her time. Right? He implied her dissatisfaction. Misai immediately waved her hands in denial. Then he continued, saying she knew his time was much more valuable than hers. He then closed the folder abruptly. Misai's investigation plan had failed. Outside, it was raining. She realized it wasn't safe to call a taxi alone so late at night. Instead, she called someone named Dai Fong. A few minutes later, a car arrived to pick her up. On the way home, Tong Fong Doi asked why she was at this place so late at night. Looking outside, he realized it wasn't Kim Lon Thursday's hotel. Misai helplessly explained it wasn't because of him. Tong Fong Doi asked again, and this time Misai, feeling vulnerable, called Dai Fong. She had just been humiliated by Kim Lon Thursday. Tong Fong Doi was shocked. Tong Fong Doi couldn't believe that had happened. Misai sat beside him, trying to wipe away her tears. In Tong Fong Doi's mind, he could see Kim Lon Thursday as a shameless person teasing the vulnerable young lady. Suddenly, she cleared her throat and laughed, saying who she was, and if he really did anything, she would kick him. He heard this and slightly smirked, saying, "Right? Huh." Misai recounted everything to Tong Fong Doi. 5 minutes later, she asked him if he thought Kim Lon Thursday was being too much. Tong Fong Doi chuckled, saying he thought he had been harsh enough to her already. Misai was surprised that her brother knew him. She asked if his boss treated him badly because he was his subordinate. Tong Fong Doi replied that he wasn't sure. Someone as important as him had a difficult personality even with ordinary employees like him. Suddenly, there was a text message. It turned out to be from him, asking Tong Fong Doi to pick up his things. This message embarrassed him. The scene from a few days ago came to mind. Luckily, it was blurred, or else the public would have criticized him again. Seeing his flushed face, Misai asked if he was okay. He had to reassure her. Tong Fong Doi glanced outside. He had already left his place. Did he really have to go back there again? He wasn't that cheap to call it going and coming. Tong Fong Doi vehemently denied his own thoughts. Misai had witnessed his changing expressions since earlier and felt threatened. Meanwhile, in Kim Lon Thursday's bedroom, he was trying on different poses in his half-covered nightwear. He tried various poses, from pretending to read with glasses on to striking a more seductive one. When he was satisfied, he poured wine into a glass and muttered that if she couldn't escape from loving him, he could understand. As he was pouring the wine, he saw a message on the screen unexpectedly from Tong Fong Doi, saying he had turned to stone. All his efforts had gone up in smoke. While he wasn't paying attention, Kim Lon Thursday accidentally wet his shirt button. He hurriedly wiped it with a towel, relieved to see it clean before sighing. Then he lay on his king-size bed and mumbled that he couldn't believe it. He didn't expect Kim Lon Thursday, who was serious in the business world, to be so childish at home. On the other side, Tong Fong Doi also regretted not being able to go. He hugged his pillow and punched his waist. Although they were in different places, their hearts were both directed towards each other. Finally, he softly whispered a good night, probably sending it to the other person.